enter Super 4, Ken, which I am desperately hoping translates to hello there. I am newly baptized Nemayan, which translates to blessing in Maasai, and this is
Olomnyak, live from the Masai Mara University, where NTV On The Road is spending a second night as we bring you stories from this part of the country, county number 33. But first, the headlines.
Tonight, the blame game and the politics of the fake gold scam.
Walikuja wakaniuliza wana shida. Mimi nilipoona ukora hii, ni mimi nilipeleka maneno nikasema hii uchunguzi ifanyike.
Ingawaje anajiita whistleblower, you cannot be part of the transactions ambazo zinafanyika pale. He's actually an abettor.
Also tonight, pain, anger and questions as victims of clashes are laid to rest.
Innocent women and children were murdered in cold blood.
It's by design that these wars are going on.
Residents want reservists' guns returned.
Plus, goons demolished kindergarten and turned to a church even as they were accused of illegality and impunity.
Clearly we feel that the government does not protect the weak. We have been told there is a court order. We have not seen that court order.
And meet the meat-loving Narok.
Kilo moja mtu moja naweza sema ni ile breakfast. Bado sijakula lunch na sapa bado sijakula.
The sober edition continues.
This is NTV Weekend Edition with Edmond, Nyabola and Burrows.
Welcome to the broadcast. We are also known, like we said earlier, as Olomnyak and Nemayan, the new names we have acquired from this part of the country. Also joining us tonight in sign language interpretation is Raphael Mbalo. To our top story.
Well, it might be a bit chilly tonight, but early in the day, things were heated as Deputy President William Ruto and his allies insist that ODM leader Raila Odinga is part of the fake gold syndicate.
Ruto was in Narok East, flanked by his allies, argued that the ODM leader's role in government is questionable, adding that his recent revelation of the Dubai visit and a meeting with the United Arab Emirates leader Mohammed Rashid bin Al Maktoum indicates participation in the fake gold scam.
NTV's Mel Mendo reports that allies of the Deputy President want Raila Odinga to present himself to the DCI and record a statement.
The latest twist in the fake gold scam came about when ODM leader Raila Odinga claimed he is the whistleblower, having met with United Arab Emirates ruler Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, revealing to him that he was being conned by fraudsters. Odinga said members of the fake gold syndicate were known to drop names of top government officials to legitimize their operations. The AU envoy even came to the defense of Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, absolving his name from the syndicate.
Raila ndiye alipiga firimbi. Hao jamaa ambayo walikuwa wameibiwa pesa yao walikuja wakaniuliza wana shida.
The latest revelations have taken a political turn, with a section of Jubilee leaders allied to Deputy President William Ruto alleging that the ODM leader is part of the fake gold syndicate, pretending to be the whistleblower. They said there is compelling evidence that the opposition chief participated in the alleged gold crime.
Ingawaje anajiita whistleblower, you cannot be part of the transactions ambazo zinafanyika pale. He's actually an abettor wa hiyo crime.
Wanajaribu kuchafua jina ya Raila huku na huko kusema ati Raila anashughulika na ufisadi pia. Hiyo ni unasema diversionary tactic. Kwa sababu wanajua hawa wametumbuika ndani ya ufisadi.
The political back and forth on the gold scam becoming muddled amidst the political battles between Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga.
Mimi nilipoona ukora hii, ni mimi nilipeleka maneno nikasema hii uchunguzi ifanyike vizuri. Sasa ingine mimi wanasema ati Raila ako pandili. Wale wezi ambao wanajulikana
mpaka waingize maneno hapa na pale. Hii kitu ya dhahabu ukweli itakuja kujulikana.
Watu wote wako chonjo na wako rada, ama kuna watu wajinga kona hii? Iko mtu ya kudanganywa hapa? Ati mtu akupigishe story ilienda ikarudi ikawa kitendawili hekaya ya Bunwas, alafu ati unampatia mambo ya uongozi.
The ODM leader says the fake gold scammers are known and are being investigated. Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula, who has been adversely mentioned in the matter, is expected back in the country on Saturday from Hong Kong, where he was attending an anti-graft conference as the Senate's representative. DCI Director George Kinoti has placed Wetangula as a person of interest in the gold scam, with the senator now expected to face interrogation at the DCI headquarters. A team of detectives had this week travelled to Dubai to record statements from Ali Zandi, who detectives believe will shed more light on which politicians and businessmen are implicated in the fake gold scam. Mel Miendo, NTV.
Away from those hekayas, Abunuwasi, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has written to banks to provide details of 50 bank accounts belonging to Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu as investigations into irregular award of tenders in the county continue.
Did you say 50 bank accounts?
Yes.
Okay.
You heard me right.
Well, sources at the commission told NTV that that the accounts are associated with Waititu, his family members and proxies. Waititu awaits another date with investigators on Tuesday. NTV's Silas Apollo reports.
Just 2 days after he got a reprieve from the courts stopping his arrest, the EACC now wants banks where Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu is said to have deposited funds to give information on his banking history. Sources at the EACC say that the institutions have been asked to provide a breakdown of all transactions, including balance sheets of at least 50 bank accounts. The agency is also looking at 35 different properties, which include luxurious mansions that the governor is constructing in Runda Estate, the Delta Hotel building situated in the Nairobi CBD, and a luxurious tourist hotel located in Naivasha. This, the sources say, is to establish whether they were acquired through proceeds of corruption. Detectives heard by Friday also confirmed that most of the 12 personal cars recovered at the governor's residence during the raid belonged to him. Waititu has been accused of abusing his office by involving himself in the irregular award of tenders worth 588 million shillings, conflict of interest, as well as fraudulent acquisition of public funds. Detectives also say that investigations will extend to other relatives of the governor, MCAs and county employees. The detectives on Friday recorded statements from Monica Njeri Ndungu, the daughter of Governor Waititu, who is said to be a person of interest in the investigations. Governor Waititu, his wife Susan Wangari, 5 senior county officials and 2 directors of companies that are said to have benefited from tenders worth hundreds of millions of shillings from the county also recorded statements. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Did you see the joke that was making rounds on social media about how some bank account balances could be confused for radio frequencies? 96.3 bob, 103.5.
But think about it. How much money do you have to have 50 bank accounts? If I had that number of bank accounts, I'd have maybe 10 shillings in each account with my net worth currently.
That wouldn't even be possible. Like there's usually the minimum balance, but it still got us laughing nonetheless.
Yeah.
While to a more somber story, the remains of 3 people who were shot dead by unknown people in Marsabit County were laid to rest today in a somber ceremony.
Area leaders who attended the burial ceremony asked the government to step in and address the rising cases of insecurity in the county.
They also want the DCI to investigate the spate of killings with a view to arresting those believed to be inciting communities against each other.
Mourners today gathered at Jirme location for an emotional send-off for 3 people whose lives were cut short by unknown gunmen in Kosobanchale, Marsabit County. The victims, who included 2 women and a 5-year-old boy, were shot dead in their home in cold blood on Friday morning. 6 people who were seriously injured were rushed to hospital. The ambush seems to have been a revenge attack sparked by the killing of 2 herdsmen at Mlima Shaba on Wednesday night. The burial ceremony was conducted according to the Muslim rites. Their pain, anger and unanswered questions were evident. The silence of those gathered here speaking volumes of their desperation to have peaceful settings and for the killings to stop.
Yale yalitokea imetuudhi sana. Na sio mara ya kwanza, na sio mara ya pili. Haya mauaji ambaye imekuwa kama mchezo katika hii kaunti ya Marsabit. Asa hii sehemu ya Saku ni lazima ikome.
It is painful that the government disarms its citizens without an alternative option for protection.
The death toll has risen to 5 in a span of 1 week in clashes pitting the Borana and Gabra communities. Earlier this month, 11 people perished in a gruesome attack over a watering point dispute in Forole along the Kenya-Ethiopian border. Leaders who attended the burial want a section of leaders in the county to be investigated for causing disunity among the communities.
Wale ambao wamehusika na haya mambo wanajulikana. Wanajulikana kwa mawazo yao, kwa maneno yao na kwa vitendo yao. Kama ni wanasiasa, kama ni wananchi wa kawaida, lazima serikali ichukue hatua.
DCI and security team to investigate the political leaders who are funding this attack.
The back and forth between community leaders and political blame game has worsened the conflict, with unending incidents of revenge between the Gabra and Borana playing out.
Our political losers of 2017, and that is why Marsabit people have to pay dearly, because some people have to come back to power.
The name of the former governor and the current CS has always been used as a scapegoat in order to divert attention from real issues, and this should really cease.
Meanwhile, students mainly from the Gabra community held peaceful demonstrations in Nairobi. The students want the national government to deal with the internal menace that seems to have gone out of hand, one which poses a serious challenge to the county.
Some political leaders in Marsabit County are killing the defenseless people to gain their political mileage.
We also demand the director of the criminal investigation to immediately arrest and investigate leaders behind these killings.
On Friday, a group of leaders from Marsabit County called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to address the deteriorating security situation in the county.
We want to appeal to His Excellency the President to kindly give attention to Marsabit now. The situation is getting out of hand. There is no harmony anymore. There is serious tension.
Meanwhile, Eastern Regional Commissioner Isaiah Nakoru has warned that stern action will be taken against politicians fueling violence in Marsabit. Nakoru observed that the skirmishes in the region were as a result of political interference. For now, what the residents are yearning for is peace and a lasting solution to the never-ending conflict. Rozongoi, NTV.
And still on security matters, leaders from Laikipia County are demanding the immediate deployment of military forces in the county to flush out bandits who have invaded the area.
The leaders faulted the government for the disarmament of the National Police Reserves, which they say has left a huge security vacuum, allowing the bandits to infiltrate the peace of the residents.
Angered and perhaps a bit exasperated by Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's decision to disarm police reservists in Laikipia County, leaders from the area say they have been left with more questions than answers on how to curb the rising insecurity in the area.
How can a responsible government withdraw guns from legitimate National Police reservists and leave armed bandits, cattle rustlers and terrorists roaming freely, killing, maiming and stealing from the people of Laikipia?
Hii mpango tumeona ni kama ile mpango ya kuondoa watu wa Laikipia, hii mashamba ishukuriwe na wakora wengine.
This comes after the decision made by the Interior CS to disarm the National Police reservists across the country for digital registration and revetting, a move that the leaders term as ridiculous and question why other security forces had not been deployed to stand in as the exercise carried on. The leaders say it could be part of a sinister plan.
Matiang'i, if it is not njama ya kutuumiza, what is it? Could you explain to Kenyans in simple terms why you would withdraw guns from police officers?
Just yesterday, leaders from the North Rift complained of the alarming rise in insecurity in the region since reservists were disarmed.
We want to tell those persons who have come to manage the national security, and particularly the new entrants of the IG, that they must get out of Nairobi, they must get out of Jogo House, they must get out of OP and go and stay. In fact, there is nothing wrong with CS Matiang'i going to stay in Kapedo for 1 week.
The North Rift leaders claim that more than 20 people have been killed in the violence after the decision made by the Interior CS.
As you polish your shoes and get your Sunday best out of the closet, worshippers who congregate at the City Church in Buruburu will have to seek an alternative place to worship tomorrow after a suspicious demolition that took place today.
Also affected are pupils of Kinderstart Primary after their school was demolished. They claim that there was no court order presented to them, terming the demolitions illegal as their 10-year lease has still to expire.
Parents and pupils arrived at the school after an alarm was raised on social media. There was trouble brewing at the school.
We were woken up around 5 by, we have a WhatsApp group for the class. So we were woken up and told that the school was under demolition, but we don't have any information of what transpired.
Armed youth surrounded them as they tried to gather their children's belongings. Shortly, the demolitions began.
Actually, even herself, she said she was not aware.
Those who tried to question the demolition or approach the area were dealt with. Those brave enough to defy the hired goons were injured in the scuffle.
They don't seem to be on our side. Clearly, we feel that the government does not protect the weak. We have been told there is a court order. We have not seen that court order.
The parents fear that the academic year has been interrupted by what they term as an illegal exercise. They sympathized with the pupils who were expected to sit for their national exams.
There is a school that has been running here for the last 7 years. I don't know where those kids are going to be. We have a church that has been running for the last 2 years. Tomorrow, we are not sure where we are going to be having our service.
However, matters quickly changed course when Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko came to their aid and stopped the exercise that had almost been completed.
So nimesitisha kama kuna court order. So I became suspicious kwa sababu after an hour sijapewa court order. So I decided nipomaliza ile mkutano mimi nikuja hapa. Na kukuja hapa we saw kids wanalia. Tuliona wamama wameshikiwa mapanga. I witnessed myself. Guna amebeba panga, ameshikia huyu mama hapa. Ameshikiwa panga na gun. So we have a working government. These things should not be allowed to happen in Nairobi.
Few arrests have been made, but though those arrested were the hired guns, it is unclear who the private developer is and what action is expected to be taken against him. That notwithstanding, building blocks were already on location, a sign of an anticipated construction project. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
And to a sad story, a police officer identified as Helen Kwamboka was found dead in her house today morning at Umoja Estate in what police suspect is a case of murder.
Kwamboka, who was based at Parliament Police Station, failed to turn up for work on Friday, the 24th of May, hence raising the alarm when they failed to reach her on phone.
It is reported that her body was found lying on the bed with deep cuts on her head and her house was covered in bloodstains.
The deceased Helen Kwamboka reportedly finished work around 7 p.m. on Thursday and began her journey to Umoja Estate, where she resided. It is reported that her body was found the next day in a pool of blood on her bed with deep cuts and signs of being strangled. Speculations that it was a crime of passion are rife, as it is alleged that her lover had visited her at night and was nowhere to be seen the next day.
Sasa sizijua kama alikuwa ameolewa ama ni nini.
lakini mimi nikiona hivi labda ni ile ya girlfriend to boyfriend nini relationship.
Other neighbors claim that they had no idea as they were not well acquainted.
Nilifanya tu kuona polisi wako wamekuja, sikuwa najua kama kuna kitu ilikuwa imehappen huko juu.
Her colleagues claim that when the deceased failed to clock in, they tried reaching her on phone to no avail. And that is when they began a search that led them to the deceased home, where they found the door to the house was locked from the inside. They broke into the house when they suspected something was amiss.
It's very painful kwa sisi, especially may affect the rafiki zake wenye walisoma naye, watu wenye wanafanya naye.
No murder weapon has been found yet, as the deceased phone is also missing. Police have begun a manhunt for the suspect and are calling on citizens who have any information to help them find the suspect. The body of the deceased has been moved to Chiromo mortuary awaiting a post-mortem examination. Helen Aura, NTV.
More than 20 investors with Suraya Property Group are seeking to be compensated for money they put in over 5 years ago with hopes of securing homes, alleging that the company is playing a cat-and-mouse game with them on the issue.
The latest allegations against the Suraya Property Group are symptomatic of the challenges facing the high-end segment of the residential property market in the capital city, as Alex Mwangi now reports.
Give us our money back with interest.
Grace Wanjiro is one of the investors with Suraya Property Group who has waited for years in the belief that she will one day live under the roof of a nice house stemming from her hard toil. She now finds herself in a quagmire that threatens to affect generations.
I had 2 units at Links, and to do this, I had to convince my 3 children to also invest with me, and we are undergoing the same problem. I, as the mother, invested 4.760 million. These houses have been rained on, they have cracks, so even if they came to complete them, I would rather have my money back, because they have said this very many times since 2014 when we were supposed to get our houses.
Wanjiro borrowed some of the funds to invest from a bank and is now paying interest without the benefit of seeing the investment turn into reality.
You go to their office, they tell you that there is nothing they can do, they do not know what to do, and then when you push them, they tell you, you can do now what you want.
Wanjiro's heartbreaking case may be attributable to mismanagement on the part of Suraya Property Group, coupled with the economic headwinds that the high-end property market in Nairobi is currently facing.
When prices go too far, people make the adjustments, which is to try and construct their own. So there's been construction going out in Nairobi in the suburban areas, and that in itself is actually having a corrective effect on how much you can sell an apartment, however fancy, within the Nairobi metropolitan area.
The housing industry has been growing robustly over the years, but then in recent times we have faced instances where some companies are facing challenges in meeting the obligations of investors who have put in money with them to construct some houses. What explains this paradox?
Well, I think it might have something to do with the fact that for the last 3 years, perhaps they've saturated the market at that level. So maybe for apartments and block buildings, and we are speaking mostly about Nairobi. So within Nairobi, it's possible that they have actually saturated that market. Incomes have not grown far enough to be able to match their pricing.
The price of land and the lengthy processes involved in getting various permits have combined to dampen the growth of the housing sector for the middle and lower income segments.
And one of the things that many of them are doing right now is construction companies or other real estate companies are adjusting downwards the prices for rents, and obviously I think for mortgages as well.
For the investors with the Suraya Property Group, the way to get back the millions of shillings they invested now shifts to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations in what may perhaps end up in the corridors of justice. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
25 minutes past the hour, and it's time for a tea break because, as Olive Nemayan Burrows mentioned at the top of the hour, it's freezing here. So don't go too far. We'll be back with more.
keeping us company on this road trip to Narok County. Now, you know, there is no way we'd come all the way here and not do a story on the Morans. And except this imposter here, that is.
I have a true Moran. Olomnyak is my name.
As debatable, leadership among the Maasai community begins at an early age. From the time of circumcision, the group of Morans walk together in the journey of life and even select their own leaders.
And as they grow up through every age group, they keep crowning new leadership to guide them to adulthood. It is a phenomenon steeped in deep tradition and respect for authority. NTV on the road witnessed the crowning ceremony and now reports. Loita Plains, about 2 kilometers from the Kenya-Tanzania border. We have come here to witness the crowning of age group leaders among the Loita clan. The Melita group, aged between 18 and 30, makes a grand entry to the venue. They have picked their leaders and it's time to crown them. Their proud mothers accompanying them, singing melodic songs of praise. It's a big day in the Maasai calendar, so the women have pulled out their best outfit. This is beauty the Maasai way. And so it's time to crown the new leaders.
Huyu ambaye anaitwa Legwenani, alafu kuna Lotuno, ndio huyu muhimu sana kwa rika na Loborionge na ambaye ni wale. Hawa sasa kwa rika, hawa ndio the top ambaye wanaheshimika katika jamii.
The Morans listen attentively to their new leadership. Some even film the events for posterity. These unique patterns smeared on their skin, a symbol of the milestone they have attained. Lengwenan, the new chief of the group, will soon head to university for further studies. Here, tradition and modernity go hand in hand.
Desturi na mila na utamaduni wetu, tunahifadhi zile ambaye tunajua hasipoteshi vijana wetu waache shule ama waweze kufanya mambo zingine ambazo haziambatani.
And so the ceremony is over and it's time to feast. Servings of roast meat, Maasai's traditional delicacy. But what is a Maasai meal without soup mixed with herbs? That sip marks the end of the ceremony. I must say it's quite a spectacle, just how they sing and chant and growl in some cases, in the women's melodic tunes.
All right.
It's quite something.
Since you claim to be a Moran, can you make the same sounds? No.
Let's move on. A recent study by the Kenya Market Trust found that every Kenyan consumes an average of up to 15 kilograms of meat annually. That may seem high or low, depending on which part of the country you come from.
But it could be argued that nowhere is meat consumed in larger quantities than among the Maasai community. And I think there's actually a lot of truth to that because in the last 24 hours, I've done about half a kg.
I've done almost 2 kilograms.
Okay. Well, here in Narok, meat is part of everyday meals, as Victor Kiprop found out.
And if you're concerned about the chronic diseases that might cause, well, the Maasais have a solution for it. Take a look.
An average Kenyan consumes up to 15 kilograms of meat every year, which translates to about 40 grams per day. But for residents here in Narok who consume meat up to 3 times a day, that figure could go up to 2 kilograms per day. Join us.
Wewe huwa unakula nyama kiasi gani kwa siku?
Kwa siku nakula kama kilo moja.
Kilo moja mtu moja?
Kilo moja mtu moja. Tangu utotoni mwetu tumelelewa na nyama. Hii chakula kingine tumekuja tu kujua juzi. Kwa hivyo, kama hujapata nyama utasikia kama umekula chakula kizuri.
But while the report shows that a majority of Kenyans consume meat only once a week, for the Maasais, meat is a key component of every meal. Sasa hii umenunua hii unakula hapa na bado jioni utaenda kukula nyama?
Hii bado ni tunaweza sema ni ile breakfast. Bado sijakula lunch na supper bado sijakula. Kwa hivyo hii ni kiamsha kinywa.
Increased consumption of red meat has already been associated with a number of diseases, with doctors advising consumption of smaller portions per day. But for the residents here, they already have a remedy.
Sasa ile mtu amekula nyama, inapiga nyama ndio mtu asipata mafuta kwa mwili na iko yenye inajanga mwili. Tunapiga dawa kama 20 mpaka 30. Na hiyo madawa ni mazuri sana kwa sababu ni ya msituni, haijachanganywa na chochote.
Narok County accounts for between 10 to 15% of Kenya's annual meat production, which is estimated at over 840,000 tons. Victor Kiprop, NTV, Narok County.
Can you imagine 1 kilogram of meat every day?
Just for breakfast?
He said.
Okay.
Haya, anasema sisi tuala nyama.
Maybe it's the secret to a long life, who knows? Because I haven't met, okay, maybe a few chunky Maasais, but...
Yeah, they have herbs for it anyway.
The high cost of medical care through out-of-pocket payments can be detrimental to the financial stability of the family. In Narok County, many have had to sell livestock to cater for the occasional medical bill.
Now, through an initiative dubbed Mbuzi Moja Afya Bora, they have just to sell 1 goat annually for medical cover through the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Eunice Omolo visited families that have benefited.
Morning session at the renal unit of Narok County Referral Hospital, Sasina Nkoyo, just finished the first hour of the 3 set for his second dialysis this week. His journey of dialysis has not been easy, strained by finances. For the early stages of treatment, Nkoyo had to travel all the way to Nairobi for his sessions. For Nkoyo, costly dialysis sessions affected his business. He had to close shop due to financial strain.
Ilikuwa ngumu sana kwa sababu ile pesa nilikuwa nimesave ya biashara. Ile nilikuwa naweka at least ya stock. Yote nilikuwa naenda naitumia kwa hospitali. Inaisha yote. Sasa venye nilishiwa na familia wameishiwa kufanya mchango nayo pia ikaisha.
But there is a relief. Nkoyo is one of the 14,000 residents of Narok County who can now access affordable medical cover under the initiative.
This is one of the beneficiaries who was able to bring the mbuzi, and he was able to purchase the card. And you can imagine it has really helped him, because the cost would have been he goes to his boma, get all the mbuzis he has, sell them, and then get the money to pay for the bills. But now with this card, he is able to pay without touching any of his investments.
It aims at reducing the financial burden for patients. Other than the health insurance cover, the county has invested in emergency care for pregnant women at risk and critically ill patients to get much needed medical care.
Nikaita ambulance, ameokoa sana, amekuja mapema, amesaidia sana kama si ambulance.
Out-of-pocket expenditure for a long time has dealt blows in the pockets of patients and their relatives, hence a sensitization program to ensure that more residents take up insurance cover to make light the burden of medical care costs. Eunice Omolo, NTV in Narok County.
In the rainy season, Narok County suffers the misfortune of heavy flooding, which washes away lives and livelihoods. The water, however, often and unfortunately goes to waste as residents of this county grapple with severe shortage of the precious commodity during the dry periods.
Now, the county government, in partnership with Japanese investors, has set up a water treatment plant to provide clean water for the residents, with plans underway to build dams and water ponds to harvest and store the rainwater.
If, like me, you grew up in the city, then to access clean, safe drinking water was as simple as turning on the tap, and there you had it. simple. But for thousands who grew up in remote areas in Narok, for instance, then it was a full-time job for the mother who still had to provide for her family and for the children who still had school to think about.
Nilikuwa naendanga soko, naenda kufanya kazi yangu ya masoko nje. Ninafanya kazi pengine ya barabara, napata kibarua kidogo, nikikuja ndani ya nyumba sina maji. Sasa kulikuwa na kazi mingi sana kwa nyumba. Juu umekuja umechoka, wewe unajua maisha ya kuchoka. Unaamuka asubuhi, unaenda kazi, unakuta una maji.
The stone structure may not look like much, but for the 37,000 or so residents of Narok town, it means the difference between a mother having time to focus on more than just meeting her family's basic needs or chasing water. This treatment plant, for which ground was broken in 2013, has added 4,000 cubic meters to the Narok water supply, a boost from the previous 1,000.
It is projected that it can serve a population of 57,000 people. Right now, because of we've not yet really have a total connectivity, which is currently taking place. It is giving us right now 3,300 cubic meters, meaning at least the population that is there is getting enough water.
The county government, not oblivious to the irony of Narok town having more water than it can handle when the rains fall heavy and not enough in the drier seasons.
They have even constructed 20 check dams, which actually try to control the floods within the Narok town.
Msitu itunzwe na watu waendelee kunywa maji kama hiyo. Unaona vile inakaa? Ni maji mzuri sana.
And on that note, we take a break, but when we come back, I come back with an interview with the MD of the Ewasonyiro, yes? Ewasonyiro South Development Authority.
Welcome back to NTV On The Road, live from the Masai Mara University. Now, the Ewaso Ngiro South Development Authority is among the regional development state corporations whose core business is to achieve the Big Four agenda and spur economic growth in the 4 counties.
Since its inception, the authority continues to advance a people-centered approach to development in line with government policy, providing opportunities for the people of Narok and beyond. Bridget Ngana has more.
In the creation story of the Ma people, they are said to have descended from the skies with their cows in tow. Throughout history, the Maasai and other pastoralist communities have fashioned their lives alongside their flock, feeding themselves and the masses with meat from the livestock. But the establishment of the Ewaso Ngiro tannery and leather factory here in Narok has begun changing perspectives over hides and skins among members of the community.
For a long time, the pastoralists have not attached value to hides and skin. What we've done is that we have begun with slaughterhouses. That is the primary source of hides and skins.
Traditional animal branding techniques are a dent in finding the best quality hide and skin, but progress is already being made to ensure this changes.
We have an intensive capacity building exercise to the same local so that we ensure that we tell them to brand at specific positions of their cattle. They brand at the ear, but it's not an easy exercise. It's an exercise that will take time.
Realizing the opportunities that lie in the value chain of livestock production, the Ewaso Ngiro South Development Authority, ENSTA, hopes will inject more employment opportunities in the South Rift region. The 1 billion shilling leather factory has a 4,000-ton capacity with a potential of creating 500 direct job opportunities.
In Kenya, we have a huge gap in terms of the leather industry. Through the national government, we thought that we can chip in to bridge the gap by processing the hides and skins from the South Rift. What we intend to do is our primary target is the local market. We are not targeting to export our products. And more so, we will collaborate with other government agencies like the Army to see whether we can make the boots for the Army.
Water conservation at the leather factory is important, and the modern treatment plant on site recycles 75% of the wastewater from the factory activities and supplies clean and safe water for use in the community.
Hatupatangi maji mazuri, alafu wakati alikuwa amekuja kutengeneza hii maji mzuri, sisi hatujawahi kupata mmoja yetu ambaye alichukuliwa kutibu mgonjwa ya cholera ama typhus.
In drought mitigation, more than 100 boreholes were sunk by ENSTA this financial year, with the dams such as Kordai and water pans in other semi-arid areas, providing water for more than 20,000 people and more than 100,000 livestock as part of the climate resilience and adaptation mechanisms. Along the border of Kisii and Narok counties in Shangoi, Transmara, lush tea plantations dot the terrain that were once battlegrounds of intercommunal conflict.
Hatukuwa tunalala kwa manyumba zetu. Vita kila wakati, unasikia tu Maasai ndio hao, Wakisii ndio hao. Sasa hapo hatukuwa na amani. Lakini kuanzia 2011, vile hicha ilianza kuchuna, tuko na amani na upendo.
In this 75-acre tea plantation, more than 70 people earn a living.
For the last around 7 years, hatujaisikia mzozo kati ya jamii mbili ambao wanaishi pamoja, saizi wanaishi pamoja kwa sababu wanakutana hapa kufanya kazi pamoja. And lingine tunapata mapato kutokana na hii chai kama ya Ewaso Ngiro ambao inatusaidia kufanya miradi nyinginezo.
The climate in Engorienito makes it one of the prime milk producing areas here in Narok. And until this milk cooling plant was put up, most of the dairy farmers here suffered loss from wastage in seasons of high milk production and middlemen.
Unafuga ng'ombe lakini hauoni manufaa yake. Ukapata kina mama tunafanya kazi, hauna nguo, unashinda ng'ombe, hiyo chakula haupati. Hiyo maziwa pia ni kidogo kwa sababu hata ukikamua ng'ombe hakuna pali ya kuuza maziwa ili upate mapato ya kuweza kumsaidia ng'ombe.
Wakulima hapa bado wanatumia mifuko ile ya samani ya kienyeji lakini kwa saizi tunajaribu kufanya capacity building kwa wakulima, angalau waguse ng'ombe ambayo yenye itatoa maziwa, kwa sababu hii sehemu iko potential sana kwa ng'ombe ya maziwa.
Conservation is also at the heart of NSDA's activities.
Promotion of investment within the Osongiro region, that is industrialization, manufacturing, job creation. At the same time, the issue of food security and water supply, issues to do with environmental conservation and rehabilitation, where we have introduced bamboo and many other seedlings, tree seedlings for purposes of conservation.
From rehabilitating sections of the reclaimed Masai Mara forest to building the capacity of dairy farmers here in Narok County to also planting tea plantations for the local communities in the greater Narok County. These are just part of the many projects that the Ewaso Nyiro South Development Authority has been conducting to help improve the quality of life for the residents of Narok County. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Narok County.
As promised, I'm now joined by the MD of the Ewaso Nyiro South Development Authority. He's given me the thumbs up on that one. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Olive. It's a pleasure.
Files by Bridget Ngana on the work that you undertake.
Right.
So one of your ambitious projects is in 5 years to supply 2 million cubic meters of water. How do you plan to achieve that, and how far have you gone in that endeavor?
Thank you very much, Olive. And we have done about 90 dams and ponds and drilled about 120 boreholes. By that we are able to store water up to 2 million cubic liters. That will be able to serve about 150 households.
All right. Now, earlier we ran a feature about how Narok floods, and then now in the drier season they struggle for water. So, how in your strategic plan, how do you address that?
Thank you. The government has put some measures to construct 2 major dams along, not very far from Narok, and by that we'll be able to collect more water and ensure that there's a number of cascaded dams as we reduce the volume of water towards the town, and at the same time used for irrigation.
Okay, so you cover Kajiado, Narok, parts of Nakuru and parts of Nyandarua.
That's right.
So that's the region.
Yeah.
All right. So another of your projects, I think, which is just about 5 kilometers from here, is a leather tannery.
Yeah.
And we had the president saying, you know, we will not be buying shoes for our disciplined forces from outside the country. They will be made right inside the country. And we always hear this talk about value addition, value addition, value addition. Why is that important?
For your information is that currently Kenya, the demand for footwear alone is about 40 million, while the country you are only able to produce about 10 million. So we have a deficit of about 20 million that we think that locally, by use of natural resources, hide and skins, will actually be able to go to production for shoes, mainly all the footwear and apparels.
Okay, and you do the same with milk. You have a cooling plant?
We have a cooling plant, and that's just to support livelihoods of some communities that are doing very good in dairy. And by doing that, in one community, they were able to increase their income from 5 million to 35 million within 1 year by having chilling and bulking of milk. Value addition.
Okay, so now, as far as food security, of course, is interconnected with security in general.
Right.
So I read about the authority starting a tea farm on the border of Transmara and Kisii.
Kisii,
what motivated that, and has it succeeded in bringing about peace in that area?
Very well. That particular zone is that one community are pastoralists and another one are agriculturalists. So there was a lot of cross-border cattle rustling. So as to address that, we came up with tea farms, a buffer zone, so that to separate the two communities. The pastoralist communities, they have the land, whereas the agriculture communities provide the labor. So they have been able to coexist, and by that, they have been able to reduce conflict by a big percentage.
So it has been successful?
Yeah, very successful.
Okay,
very
it was very ingenious.
Very
you came
successful.
Up with that. It's a very ingenious idea.
Very successful.
Okay, the other thing that I want to ask you about is the question of the politics and that surround conservation in this area. How have you been able to navigate that? Because I know you provide tree seedlings like to schools and to companies, for instance. But how do you navigate the politics around conservation in this area?
Thank you, Olive. Again, the Mau ecosystem is a critical natural resource to this country because of the rivers. And on annual basis, we plant about 3 million seedlings in the Mau and the adjacent areas. And we take a collaborative approach between the county government, KFS, and other partners in the planting of this tree. And then that partnership has enabled us to work and successful work.
Okay. All right, there we have it. We were speaking to the Managing Director of the Ewasongiro South Development Authority. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me as well. I've learned so much. And now we take a break, but we'll be back before you know it.
Welcome back to NTV On the Road Super Edition, live from the Masai Mara University in Narok County. Now, KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli has asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to issue a directive stopping early campaigns.
Atwoli, who was speaking in Kisumu County, said the campaigns had put the country in an election mood at the expense of development. He also asked the president not to relent in the fight against graft.
Naweza kutoa presidential directive asimamishe early campaigns in the country. Na kama yeye anaogopa deputy yake aniwachie mimi. Aniwachie. Pesa wanazotumia kwa campaign, this is public money. Public resources. Unapata polisi wako hapa, watu wa serikali wako hapa, magari imekunywa petroli ya serikali, na hakuna uchaguzi, hata tarehe uchaguzi itatangazwa.
The president brought us up and actually showed us that he had guts to ensure that corruption was brought to an end. But for some reason, there's too much inaction. What happened to the dams?
We now hand you over to Ida Waringa in Nairobi for the sports.